Hello everybody and welcome back to Expert Examiner IELTS. My name is Glyn and in this video I'm going to do some more feedback on IELTS Academic Writing Task 2. We begin as always by reading the question, rereading the question, reading the question for a third time, a fourth time, making sure that we understand exactly what we need to do and also thinking a little bit about structure, about how we're going to organize our essay. So let's take a look at the question first of all. And let's get out a pen here. So, okay. What do we have? It is common knowledge that candidates in job interviews, tend to give answers that the interviewer wants to hear, instead of giving truthful answers. Okay. As such, job interviews are not the best way to determine whether a candidate is suitable for a job or not. To what extent, that should be to what extent, not extend. Don't know where that came from. To what extent do you agree or disagree? So let's think about this and let's make this simpler. Let's explain this and, explain it to myself, and you should explain these questions to yourself too. So it's common knowledge. Everybody knows that, when people, and let's try to make the language simpler, when people go for job interviews and the interviewer asks them questions like, okay, describe yourself. People always say things like, oh, I'm very hardworking and I love working as part of a team, but I'm also very good at working by myself too. Cool, right? What motivates you? Oh, what really motivates me is working for this company because this is a company that I've always liked since I was blah, blah, blah. Whereas really, we know that, in most cases, people just need money to live. People like eating food, and so they need to get money to eat food. People like living in houses. That's why they go for a job. And so this question suggests that, well, because everybody who goes to interviews kind of tells some lies, this person says, well, because of that, interviews are not the best way to understand if a candidate is suitable for a job. Maybe we need some other way of understanding, of determining that. So to what extent do you agree or disagree with these questions? I just think pick one, agree or disagree, and then spend the rest of your essay just defending your position. So, for example, if you agree with this, your body paragraph 1 will be reason 1 why you agree, and body paragraph 2 is reason 2 why you agree. But it's not like, oh, I agree because blah, blah, blah. We want to present arguments. First reason why job interviews don't give us reliable candidates is blah, blah, blah. Now, a reason has already been suggested in the interview question, in the essay question, and that makes it a little bit trickier, right? So if you agree with this, a lot of people will say, well, I agree because candidates in job interviews tend to give answers that the interviewer wants to hear. That's my reasoning. But you need to provide further reasons to explain why that's such a problem that interviews are not the best way to determine. So I think the easiest position here is to disagree with this and then to present 2 reasons why job interviews are still good ways of determining candidates. That's just my approach. And so I would spend, body paragraph 1 saying job interviews are still really useful because blah, 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 blah. Reason number 2, they're still useful because blah, 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 blah. My conclusion would be a quick summary of my 2 points and then some call to action. No, maybe not call to action, but some reflective comment at the end. Maybe some advice for some employers, some hypothetical employers, something like that. But okay. Let's see what our candidate does. So 4 paragraphs, don't need more than 4 paragraphs. If you're writing 5 paragraphs, for me, you're writing 5 paragraphs in 250 words. It's difficult to develop your ideas fully, in my opinion, but, still possible. What does our candidate have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, of course. I don't know why this is a trend now in IELTS essay writing, why everyone is writing 5 paragraphs. It's like, every textbook, well, maybe not every essay in every textbook, but the majority of model essays in textbooks, and if you look at people like IELTS Liz and people like this, four paragraphs in total. Just two body paragraphs are enough. If you look at, English file essays and things like this, they always recommend this 4 body paragraph structure. It's easy to balance it, but okay, candidates will always do what they want to do, even if it's not in their best interest. So I don't know why everyone's writing 5 paragraphs, but everyone's writing 5 paragraphs nowadays. But okay, enough of this complaining, Glyn. Let's get into check-in. So, let's have a look here. Job interviews have long been a standard method. Very nice. Have long been very nice. A standard method for evaluating candidates. Method of evaluating candidates might be slightly better. Method for, that's okay. Yet they, nice use of yet. Nice use of yet their reliability is increasingly questioned. Okay, cool. Some argue that interviews fail to examine a candidate's true abilities or personality, as applicants often tailor their responses to impress. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Tailor their responses to impress rather than to reflect reality. Synonym of tell the truth. Okay, little bit obvious that it's just a paraphrase, but that's okay. Personally, partially agree. And when you take this partially agree, it makes it a bit more difficult to maintain that consistent position. So write your essays how you want to do them. My approach would be to pick a side, agree or disagree, instead of partially agree, because now we need to reflect that partial agreement in our body paragraphs. But let's see. I partially agree with this perspective, because I believe that interviews, if properly structured, remain an invaluable component of the hiring process. Okay, I don't know if I'm mistaken here. Candidate says that they agree with the perspective that interviews fail to examine a candidate's true abilities. Yes, says the candidate, I agree. Interviews are not a good thing to examine a candidate's abilities. But then the candidate says that they agree that interviews are not a good way to measure a candidate's ability by saying, I believe that interviews, if properly structured, remain an invaluable component of the hiring process. That's a reason why you would disagree. I mean, the candidate could say, no. I mean, the reason I only partially agree is because they need to be properly structured. But that's not the way that this reads. The way that this reads is, I agree that interviews fail to examine a candidate's true abilities because interviews remain an invaluable component of the hiring process. So that makes it a little bit confusing. So really, this is why, again, I recommend reading the question over and over and over again. But yeah, candidates don't, candidates won't. Okay, it is undeniable that many candidates rehearse their answers or exaggerate their achievements in interviews. Okay, this isn't really a great topic sentence. I want you to connect it to the question. Connect it to your position. The first reason why job interviews fail. And here you're kind of repeating the idea you're kind of taking their idea, right? You're taking their argument, but you really should be presenting your own argument. But okay. It is undeniable, and yeah, this doesn't feel like an argument. It is undeniable that many candidates, it feels like another background sentence, but it doesn't show whether you agree or disagree and why. Okay. They may highlight strengths that align with the job description and downplay weaknesses, creating a polished, okay, nice use of participle, a polished but potentially misleading self-image. Okay, I'm still waiting for you to say if interviews, we should get rid of them or not. And we're into the last sentence now. This can lead to hiring decisions based on performance rather than potential, especially if the interviewer is inexperienced. Okay, nowhere in this body paragraph do you really say, I have no idea here if you think interviews are a good thing or not. Because you say, at first you say, I agree with this perspective, interviews are bad. Then you say, interviews remain an invaluable component of the hiring process. So I think, okay, you think interviews are good. And now you're just explaining, you're just, not quite paraphrasing, but just developing this idea that, this idea that candidates in job interviews tend to give answers that the interviewer wants to hear, right? So you're just explaining the anchor. You're explaining this anchor point in the question. And I don't know why you've spent a body paragraph doing that. I want to see what you believe and why. I don't want you to tell me that people lie in job interviews or people exaggerate or rehearse their answers in job interviews, because I know that from the question. This is a body paragraph, and for me, it's wasted. Okay, however, dismissing interviews entirely overlooks their unique benefits. Okay, this is a reasonable topic sentence, but still I want to get into those benefits quite early. When conducted, nice use of this reduced relative passive clause. When conducted by skilled professionals, using nice use of this participle. Very, very good with grammar. Using behavioral or situational questions. Not sure what behavioral or situational questions really are, but that's maybe my problem. Interviews can offer deep insights into a candidate's thought process, interpersonal skills, and problem-solving skills. Okay, all very good, agree. Moreover, non-verbal cues such as confidence. Is confidence a non-verbal cue? Non-verbal cue is something that you do. So non-verbal cue might be scratching your head. It's not, confidence isn't a non-verbal cue, but there are non-verbal cues that can show if a person is confident or not. So that's, just slightly imprecise. Confidence, body language, and communication style. Communication style, I don't really think that's a non-verbal cue. There can be things. So communication style seems to be quite an umbrella term, quite a broad term. When we're thinking of cues, we're thinking of individual things, how someone maybe projects their voice, but that's a verbal cue. How somebody maybe keeps square shoulders, that could be a non-verbal cue. But you can't say that confidence and communication style are examples of non-verbal cues. So just a slight misunderstanding of what those non-verbal cues mean. Can also reveal aspects of suitability that resumes, or tests. Resumes. Sorry. Aspects of suitability that resumes or tests cannot. Okay, cool. Agree with this point. And this is what I mean when I say it's usually a bad idea. And I say this as a teacher, not as an examiner. It's a bad idea to choose the partially agree, because I don't know where you are. And we know that we have to maintain a clear position. And because of this confusion, I can't hand on heart say that you're really maintaining a clear position, because I'm still a little bit confused about where you are, which side you're on. But okay. Let's keep going. Nevertheless. Okay, so we started with a however there, with a nevertheless there. Is that mechanical? Nah, it's okay. Nevertheless, interviews should not be the sole method of assessment. Combining them with other evaluation tools such as practical tasks, trial periods, or personality assessments can lead to more accurate and fair hiring decisions. This multifaceted approach helps balance the weaknesses of interviews. Oh, sorry, that's my mark there. Let's delete that. Sorry, let's keep going. hiring decisions. Cool. This multifaceted approach helps balance the weaknesses of interviews and ensures a more comprehensive assessment of the candidate. Okay, nice and clear. And I can kind of see now, I can kind of see the rounding of your partial agreement. So you're kind of saying, yeah, people lie, but interviews still have some good points. But the approach that we should take is this multifaceted approach. So with this body paragraph, you're kind of adding a bit of balance that helps me to understand it. Sometimes I judge things a little bit too early, but still I would be careful with this body paragraph because I don't really feel like we need an explanation. But again, I'm just thinking aloud here. Just thinking aloud. In conclusion, while it is true that candidates may present idealized versions of themselves during interviews, this does not necessarily mean that the process is useless. When supported by additional assessment tools and conducted skillfully, interviews still play a crucial role in selecting the right person for the job. Okay, so super, super, super accurate in terms of grammatical accuracy, grammatical range and accuracy. No problem giving that a 9. Lexical resource. Okay, we had that problem with cues, with non-verbal cues, but I think that's just a slight misunderstanding. Could someone say that it's an 8? I think there's enough vocab in there to award a 9. If an examiner gave an 8, I wouldn't be too surprised. Okay, coherence and cohesion and the... So for me, there might be... Okay, let's have a look at coherence and cohesion. The message can be followed effortlessly. Now, I had to do a little bit of rereading just to understand, your position and where you were. But in terms of the language, can the language be understood effortlessly? And I would certainly say yes. We get, the normal signposting language, a range of different cohesive features, like use of participles is really good. Use of connectives is really good. Okay, we get referencing and substitution. So, this multifaceted approach helps balance the weak. Yeah, so... And the paragraph structure, it is logically organized into paragraphs. Cohesion is used in such a way that it very rarely attracts attention. And that, that little thing of thinking like, nevertheless, you started that with however, and this one with nevertheless, does that attract my attention? It does attract my attention a little bit, that like, oh, that's how you're going to do it. You're going to use like a negative contrast, conjunction, not a conjunct, a conjunct, conjunctive adverb, that's the word. I think they're conjunctive adverbs, aren't they? However, nevertheless. And so that kind of slightly attracts attention. And I think your use of participles, while they're really good, I kind of feel just a little bit that they are maybe, I don't know, 8 or 9 for coherence and cohesion. I'm going to be generous and award the 9. Certainly people might disagree with me and say an 8, but that's okay. And then finally getting into task response. So this is the part where I think like, okay, how much of this is Glyn? How much of this is me not liking the way that you've structured it? And how much of it is following the band descriptors? So the Glynish side of things says this: I don't like that you've chosen to partially agree. But as an examiner, I can say nothing about that. But I do think that it's a bit, I want an argument. I want an argument in all paragraphs, in these body paragraphs. It's an essay, right? And I don't know, I'm thinking about this body paragraph. I'm thinking, where's the argument here? It's an IELTS essay, so we have to be concise. We have to be on point. We don't want to waste things, and we don't want to add any irrelevant detail. And I'm thinking, agree or disagree, and why? And for me, just explaining why this paragraph explains why it's a problem. but you really don't need to do that. And so for me, this is a lapse in content. And you will see, I'll show you the band descriptors here. So, okay, let's look at a 7. The main parts of the prompt are appropriately addressed. They are. Right? You've given reasons why you partially agree, why you agree and disagree. A clear and developed position is presented. I wasn't completely sure that it was clear, but the way that you wrapped it up with your last body paragraph and your conclusion helps me to understand that. So I can definitely say yes. But this thing, main ideas are extended and supported. They certainly are, but there may be a tendency to overgeneralize. I don't think you have that problem. There may be a lack of focus and precision in supporting ideas. Don't think that that's so we're perfectly okay, right? We're perfectly okay with everything in 7. So you have a minimum of a 7. Let's have a look at 8. Now, lapses in content. The prompt is appropriately and sufficiently addressed. I would say yes. A clear and well-developed position is presented in response to the question. Yeah. Ideas are relevant, well extended and supported. The ideas are, but then there may be occasional omissions or lapses in content. So for me, having a whole body paragraph that really doesn't have an argument about why you agree or disagree, for me that's more than an occasional lapse in content. And so for that reason, I'm going to award 7 for the task response. Now, this is a tricky essay to mark, and certainly there may be many examiners out there, and there might be many just viewers who tell me that, I'm absolutely wrong to award the 7 because there's not a clear position. And there might be people who say there might be people who say that it deserves less than a 7 because there's a lack of clear position. And there might be people that say that it's an 8. It fully develops. I don't think there's quite enough there for a 9, but I could see a justification for an 8. I could see a potential justification for a 6, and so I kind of sit in the middle there and would award the 7 for this. What I will say about this candidate is that his level of English is amazing. There are 0 grammatical mistakes here, which always, and this is nothing against the candidate, it always makes me think cheating, right? Because everybody makes some mistakes, and by cheating I don't mean like completely cheating. I mean writing your essay and then getting ChatGPT to make a couple of different edits or looking for little bits of vocab online. It's very rare for candidates in test conditions. I'll repeat, it's very rare for candidates in test conditions to write an academic essay without one grammatical mistake. So of course I'm suspicious. Of course, I'm a little bit suspicious. But the candidate's English is absolutely phenomenal. I just think, if you just follow the simple method of a 4-paragraph structure and make arguments, then you don't risk going off topic. You don't risk adding, unnecessary detail or irrelevant detail. But candidates will never listen to me. Students will never listen to me. They will always do their own thing and they will always get a lower mark. I don't know why it says overall 6.5. Sorry about that. It is not overall 6.5. It is overall, so 9997 is 8.5, right? Overall 8.5, 9998 would be 8.75, so 9997 is 8.5. So overall 8.5. This is a C2 piece of writing. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Just a little bit with I'm not convinced that this body paragraph really belongs in this essay, but for sure there are probably people out there who disagree with me, who tell me that I'm wrong, and examiners always face this difficulty, right? Examiners are always second guessing, always doubting themselves, because IELTS, the top down stuff from IELTS doesn't really tell you this stuff. I'm lucky that I examine for a number of different exams where we go through tricky writing tasks. We get together as examiners once a month, or we have the opportunity at least once a month to get together to put the essay, the difficult essay that we find, to put that in front of examiners, and then we can have like a team of 10 or 15 examiners with the quality assurance people, with the senior examiners, and then we discuss why we give it the marks that we give it, and that helps us with our calibration. As I understand, with the IELTS examiners, they don't have that, and I think that's a pity, and I think, they should do that. But I don't know. Maybe in some organizations they do. Who knows? But for me, this is 8.5. Very strong piece of writing. Task response just a little bit lower. Anyway, let me know what you think. Do you agree that it is a C2 piece of writing? Do you think the candidate has used ChatGPT to get a little bit of help? Maybe a little bit of help. Who knows? If you'd like me to check your IELTS writing and give you feedback and scores, or if you'd like a free practice speaking test with feedback, I collect all of my candidates either on my Telegram channel, Expert Examiner, or my Facebook group, Expert Examiner IELTS. Candidates are selected at random, but if you don't want to go through the random process where you have to be a lucky winner, if you'd prefer to pay for a speaking test or a writing check, then information on how you can do that is on my website, expertexaminer.com. More videos coming soon, but for now, bye-bye.